$9 billion, one drop of blood, and a lie, so big, it killed people. This isn't a startup failure. This is medical murder. In 2014, Elizabeth Holmes convinced the world she had revolutionized medicine. Walgreens bet their brand on her. Henry Kissinger sat on her board. And patients, real people waiting for cancer results, were testing their blood on machines. That didn't work. Welcome to the Autopsy. Case number 1, Theranos. To understand the disease, you have to study the body when it was healthy, or appeared to be. The year is 2014. Silicon Valley is drunk on disruption. And here comes Elizabeth Holmes, dropping out of Stanford at 19. Adopting the Steve Jobs black turtleneck. Changing her voice to a baritone register that commands boardrooms. The pitch was intoxicating. 240 different diagnostic tests. Not from vials of blood, not from needle sticks, from a single drop. Prick your finger, put it in her machine, called the Edison, and get your results in 4 hours. No phlebotomists, no labs, just magic. And the money flooded in. $4.5 billion valuation. Rumsfeld, Mattis, the Waltons, the biggest names in defense and retail and venture capital. All of them saw the prototype, heard the baritone voice, and wrote checks. Because Holmes understood something critical about human psychology. She didn't sell technology. She sold belonging. If you questioned the Edison, you weren't being diligent. You were being a dinosaur. You were against saving lives. She wrapped the tech in moral superiority, and nobody kicked the tires, not because they couldn't, because they were afraid to look stupid. The body looked alive. The heart had already stopped. Let's open the chest cavity. The Edison machine looked like a sleek white toaster from Apple headquarters. Inside, it was a mechanical Frankenstein. It didn't work. Ever. Here's the anatomy of the lie. The Edison could only run about 15 blood tests, basic immunoassays. But Holmes had promised 200. So, what did they do? They used duct tape. Literally. When Walgreens executives visited the Theranos lab for due diligence, employees had to hide the commercial Siemens analyzers behind partitions. Those were the machines actually running the tests. Holmes's revolutionary device was mostly a shell that forwarded your finger prick blood to competitors' equipment. But there was a second complication. Finger prick blood is capillary blood. It's different from venous blood from your arm. There's tissue fluid contamination. There's clotting issues. To run it on standard Siemens machines, Theranos had to dilute it. And dilution created wild inaccuracies. Vitamin D readings off by 60%. The chemistry was failing. And in February 2014, Holmes knew it. Internal emails prove it. The Edison was throwing out-of-range alerts constantly. Error codes that meant the machine couldn't validate results, so they did something unforgivable. They pivoted from innovation to cover-up. They disabled the quality control checks. They split samples, sending the same finger prick to the lab twice under different names to hide the variance. They averaged the wrong numbers. In the lab, they called the Edison the dog food because it was only good for testing on dogs. But they put it in 40 Walgreens locations anyway. Real patients, people waiting for HIV results, pregnancy tests, cancer markers, they got false positives, false negatives. One patient, Aaron Tompkins, got a false HIV positive and spiraled into depression for months. Holmes's response? She hired lawyers, not to fix the machine, to silence the whistleblowers. Non-disclosure agreements thicker than phone books. Tyler Shultz, grandson of George Shultz, who was on the Theranos board, Tyler tried to warn his grandfather. Holmes's COO, Sunny Balwani, threatened to destroy his life. The disease wasn't just technical failure, it was cultural sepsis, secrecy, intimidation, compartmentalization so strict that engineers working on the left side of the machine weren't allowed to talk to engineers on the right, because if anyone saw the whole picture, they would realize there was no picture, just a collection of broken promises, held together by sheer willpower and $9 billion of other people's money. In medicine, we call it code blue, the moment the heart stops. For Theranos, that was a phone call in 2015. John Carreyrou. Wall Street Journal. He had a source, a real one. A pathologist named Adam Rosendorf who had quit because he couldn't live with the patient risk. Carreyrou had documents. He had the internal validation reports showing 40% error rates on potassium tests. Holmes had a choice. She could admit the machines failed. She could recall the tests, refund Walgreens, go back to R&D. Or she could attack the messenger. She chose war. She enlisted David Boies, the most feared lawyer in America. $1,400 an hour. He sent threatening letters to the Journal. Holmes went on CNBC's Mad Money, looked directly into the camera and said, "This is what happens when you work to change things." But she had no data, only narrative. And in October 2015, the Journal published, "A prized startup's struggles." The incision was made. The autopsy began. The bleeding was catastrophic. Walgreens suspended the partnership immediately. The FDA raided the labs. In 2016, CMS banned Holmes from owning a blood lab. The accreditations were revoked. The Edison machines were unplugged, wheeled into storage closets, like corpses on gurneys. And here's the forensic detail that matters. Holmes didn't fail because the technology was hard. She failed because she crossed the line, from fake it till you make it, to forge it while patients take it. In March 2018, the SEC charged her with massive fraud. Not for losing money, for lying about the contracts. She told investors they had $100 million in revenue. The real number? 100,000. She showed pharmaceutical logos on her website, Pfizer, GlaxoSmithKline, implying they had validated her technology. They hadn't. She had photoshopped their logos onto fake reports. The money didn't just run out, it evaporated because it was never backed by substance, just storytelling. And that's when the body was officially declared dead. If I had to make the Y incision, the definitive cut that reveals the cause of death, I'd point to one specific date, September 7th, 2018, the indictment, wire fraud, conspiracy. But the actual kill shot happened years earlier. It happened in 2007, in a meeting with Pfizer. Scientists tested the Edison. It failed. Holmes had the data. And she made a choice. She chose the fraud over the fix. That's the incision. That's when we proved the subject was dead on arrival. Everything after 2007 was just cadaveric spasm. Nerves firing in a dead body, making it look like it was still walking around, still wearing the black turtleneck, still giving TED Talks. The trial came in 2021. Holmes took the stand. She didn't use the deep voice anymore. She cried. She blamed Sunny Balwani. She claimed domestic abuse. The jury didn't buy the excuse, but they also didn't find her guilty on every count. 11 of 12 jurors were women. Some saw themselves in her. Some saw the manipulation. She was convicted of 4 counts of fraud. 11 years in prison. Balwani got 13. The $4.5 billion valuation became zero. Not a penny for the investors. And the patients? They got settlement checks for small claims, barely enough to cover the therapy they needed after false cancer scares. The autopsy is complete. The cause of death? Narrative fraud, complicated by moral bankruptcy. So, what do we learn? Due diligence isn't a paperwork exercise. It's a moral obligation. When someone says, "Trust me, the science works," but they won't show you the FDA filings, walk away. When the board is full of politicians instead of engineers, run. In business, you can fake the product for a while. You can fake the revenue, but you cannot fake the variable costs. If the unit economics don't work, the scale doesn't matter. Theranos proved that $9 billion cannot defy physics, and neither can you. This was the Profit Autopsy. See you in the next case.